Chat. Okay, perfect. Marc, welcome,
Gary,
welcome. Please
thanks.
introduce yourself.
Thanks, man. So, yeah, Marc Honorof. Bit of a serial entrepreneur. I've founded or co-founded 7 businesses in the past. Some were good, some crashed and burned. So I know the good, the bad, and the ugly. Can help you avoid some mistakes. Currently, I'm working with a company called Tokyo Pop, who's a leader in manga and anime. I sit on their board. Um, I'm launching or have launched an educational initiative using manga to teach history, science, and math to middle school students because that's all they read are manga and graphic novels. I have a pretty popular podcast called Warriors in Their Own Words, which are first person veteran stories dating back to World War I, World War II, Vietnam. It's like sitting in your living room listening to your grandfather tell war stories. And I do a couple other little things here or there. I'm very open and collaborative. I mentor a lot of startups. Um, I run a startup and entrepreneurship group for a national networking organization called Provisors. We have 11,000 members across the country. Um, and in a nutshell, I guess that's me.
I love it. I love it. I think the interesting thing, beside just how experienced you are and in different fields, you have a real community oriented, um, I don't know if it's like an approach, but it's something that you live and die by is what I've learned from you, and it's really shown in how you lead provisors with your group and the people that you brought in as speakers and wrangle around that, and you've brought me in, which is something that I've been very honored and excited about because I typically wouldn't have thought of myself as being a good fit to get in front of those people and speak, but the 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 conversations that happened as a result of that were very, very unique and interesting. And it lent itself to highlighting the value that everyone brings, not specifically in regards to the field that they're a part of or the market or industry, but just as people with different experiences and backgrounds and ways of thinking and how that leads to innovation and just having more fun as being a human being in your
Yeah,
community.
if it's not fun, don't do it.
Absolutely. I'm
I mean,
curious.
you're a startup catalyst, Gary. So you do very similar work. You bring together people of a like mind to support each other and to support young growing companies. So that's sort of the mindset I'm always attracted to. I believe in paying it forward. I believe in collaboration. Whenever I introduce myself, I always say I'll talk to anybody at any time about anything. You never know who's who and where something's going to lead.
I love that. I'm curious in your experience with the community side and everyone that's watching, post your questions. Your questions are what matter. Mine are iffy. So post your questions in chat. I will read them to Marc and you can get your answers, advice, feedback, insights, all that fun stuff. All right. But in the
And if
meantime,
you don't ask questions, I'm just going to talk about what I feel like talking about.
that's true. And you have some cool things to talk about. So we'll get to that for sure. But in the meantime, as we're like leading up to people posting some questions and getting brave and bold, in your experience, like, with the success that you've had, what has been the most impactful, surprising result of just being part of your community? And again, not chasing after people in a transactional way, but just again, wanting to be a good neighbor, wanting to be part of what's going on outside of yourself.
Sure. So, everybody has, not everybody, almost everybody has imposter syndrome. I suffer from it myself. So, probably the most surprising thing to me is when I get a call from somebody looking for advice, or someone wants to send me a pitch deck to review and make comments. Um, I feel very honored when that happens. And it sort of reinforces to me. Um, I've been around the block, and I do have some experience that can be helpful to people. And I'm always surprised when I get those calls.
I love it. Yeah, it's funny. Like I mentioned this to you, like I play ice hockey, I have for like a very long time now, and some of the most interesting relationships I have in my professional life came from just other guys on my team that are doing very unique, fun things, whether it's 3D sculpting or they're filmmakers, documentarians, or something vastly different that's a lot more boring, like an accountant or something. And so, yeah, it's just really fun to be aware of just the opportunities that are available to you from just, again, not being 100% obsessed with whatever that ambition is, that job, that business venture, whatever it may be, and making time for friends, family, hobbies, all that good stuff. Um, Sorry, I'm looking at the chat. There's a little bit of a volume issue happening.
Oh, uh-oh.
Uh, Turned up your mic, so it should be louder now on your side, but uh,
Testing. So good. Can you hear me better?
find out. But it might just be a personal issue with one person. Hi, Andrew Fox. Glad you're here hanging out with us. Over on LinkedIn, we got some people tuning in.
Cool.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, so yeah, again, anyone that's here, William, welcome back. Great to see you again. Yeah, post your questions. Boyan and William over here on Start Mata. You know the drill. If you want to come up on stage and ask questions using your microphone, feel free. Camera's optional. And yeah, everyone else, feel free to ask some questions. Let me see right here. I thought there was one that came in earlier. Okay, so got a question from a person named Truther on Discord. Corporations, investors scare me. Apart from becoming more brave, advice on how not to navigate in a lucrative market with the next big thing. So yeah, just basic kind of like, I guess, advice on operating around people who, from what I'm getting from this truther, and you can add some clarity to this question, but it sounds like you're early stage. You've got an idea, and you're worried about corporation investors in a very lucrative market, possibly taking your idea. Is that what it is? Let's see. They're typing, but yeah, Marc, we can talk about that topic because you, again,
Yeah,
you're an
yeah, yeah.
entrepreneur many times over as well. So, how do you handle the fear of someone taking your idea?
Well, first of all, nobody has the time, energy, intelligence, background to take an idea that you've come up with yourself. Everybody's busy, especially if you're talking about the investment community, corporations who have their own mission. VCs, for example, won't sign an NDA, so don't even try. Nobody's going to take your idea. Lose that fear immediately.
Yeah, and the other thing to add on to that, and we talk about this a lot, it's also about the sum of all the moving parts, right? Your team, you yourself, the way you have experienced life up to this point and continue to experience life, again, as an individual and as a team working on this, you're all bringing different ideas and biases to the outcome of how you execute, how you design a web page, how you design the products, like if it's a physical product, like the packaging, the way it feels in your hand. Like think about Nikon versus Canon versus Sony. Like the simplest differences in how the cameras are designed to fit into your hand and where the buttons are placed. And then you just talk about the software, the way the UI is accessed and the way the menus flow. All these different things impact who that's going to appeal to and why before you even get into the feature set and the benefits of those things. So just be aware that anyone that does steal your idea, they're going to produce something drastically different than what you have in your mind, what your vision is, or what you've already brought to market and what it'll become as you go through the iterative process of getting feedback and improving or pivoting. Um, okay, so awesome. You have some add-ons there. The usual
Yeah, I'll just
concern.
make one
Yeah.
one one comment on that also. At the end of the day, the best marketer is going to win. I mean, look at the golf industry. How many people make golf clubs? You know, the companies that know how to market and can market their way around other companies, those are the winners. So to me, it's always been about sales and marketing.
Absolutely. And that too, like understanding who you're marketing to. and why them and how you're going to provide them with a more enjoyable experience and benefits and thus value through your services, through your product, through your brand, and all the different touch points that they'll have with you. And that, leads into the marketing and how you tell your story in a persuasive way and keep them, wanting to seek you out and engaging with you and talking about you. That's very good additional insight. Um, yeah, so they also added the usual concerns include also selling off too much equity with the investors, finding the good guys who share the mission. They have a proprietary blend of different things going on with their product, so they're not too worried about the idea being stolen, which is a good thing. But it's
Mhm.
still wonderful that everyone got that advice and got to hear that. But in regards to, yeah, working with an investor and managing the equity, do you have any advice with that and how you manage that?
Sure. First of all, equity is extremely expensive. So the more you give away, the less value you retain, obviously. Um, Sort of depends on the profile of the investor you're talking to, right? So, if you're talking to a strategic, right, where there's a reason for them to get involved, maybe they're going to buy your product and distribute it for you. Um, they have access to the market you're trying to address. Um, Equity means a little bit less to them. So, you can discount your product to them. There's other ways to attract them. Um, any investor that's going to hold you up for more and more and more equity, it does not have your best interest at heart, right? Because an investor wants you to keep as motivated as possible. So the more equity you retain, the more upside you have, the more they know that you're going to be working your ass off to grow that company. So, be reasonable, look at comps in your market. Um, what you got to look at the investor profile, and you have to find an investor. You talked about your mission. You have to find an investor who at least understands and agrees with your mission, right? They may not be walking exactly down that same path with you. Um, First of all, there's no such thing as dumb money, right? Money is money, and anybody who's going to part with it is smart if they're investing. But there's strategic money, and I always preach that's your first stop, right? So if you're making, a widget that goes to a particular industry, find all those industry leaders or A's and B's, and approach them. But before you approach them, say, "Hey, I'm doing this. You want to invest?" Understand what the value is that you're bringing to them, how they benefit, other than making a little bit of money. Um, what's the strategic hook for them?
Yeah, and Truther says that their mission is powerful, so powerful, and I think that's important because it makes it easier, at least it should make it easier for you to identify who's going to be in alignment with your mission. The more clear you are in defining and understanding your mission, your values, your culture, the more you have to connect to other people and align with those people and identify are they a good fit or a bad fit, right? And that plays into the strategy of it all. And I'm curious too, in regards to the strategy and the value, what I hear and think about often when it comes to investors is what value can you bring to the portfolio companies they already have? Are there strategic,
Absolutely.
partnerships possible between you and those other portfolio companies? Do you have any other insights to share on that and how to possibly even approach that kind of conversation or bring that up to a potential
Well,
investor?
yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, that goes into your research. If you're going out for money, uh, don't shotgun it. Put together the universe that's interested in your particular industry and your particular product. And the other thing that I would say, which I see so many people guilty of, don't fall in love with your idea. Be willing to iterate it. Maybe it's so you can fit into another portfolio company of that investor. You fall in love with your idea, you're dead.
Yeah, and this I I went to the Hive. I'm sure you've been there already, Mark, with Eric and Brian. They're one of their
Uh-huh.
wonderful outfits they have in Camarillo, and it was a pitch kind of like, event. And it was very interesting because you see how some of these founders are too in love with their idea during the Q&A portion, where they get a little bit too defensive and a little bit too egotistical with what they believe is correct, even before they've entered the market and generated revenue and proven their assumptions correct, their hypothesis correct. And it goes a long way. Like I was talking to a couple investors in the room, and yeah, it very much was a red flag to them because it demonstrated what you're just like the opposite of what you're just saying is that in the course of going through the product life cycle, the business life cycle, being too attached makes it nearly impossible for them to properly assess and apply the lessons that they're learning in order to move forward down the right path. They're going to move consistently down the wrong path because they're just like, heads down, obsessed with what that vision is, with what that idea is, and they're not willing to change it. And I think this goes back to what I just said too, and you can like, like correct me on this. Having a clear mission, clear values, clear culture is where you can be real stuck. And it's okay to be stuck because the vision can always change to support those things. Is that incorrect?
No, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. I'll also give you a little $50 tip about going after investors. Um, so if you have a widget you're trying to raise money for a company that's doing X, Y, Z, go make your first presentations to people you don't want to be involved with. Go make your mistakes with people you don't care about, right? Polish what you're doing. Take the input from the people that you don't really care about other than their opinions. So when you're ready to go pitch somebody you're really interested in bringing on board, you've already fleshed out the weaknesses.
I think that's amazing advice. And it echoes a lot of what we talk about, you and I and every other mentor. It's about getting the practice in, getting those reps in. Not only so you can feel more comfortable and have your personality shine more, and you're spending less time feeling anxious and scared about what you're doing, but it also allows you to encounter different hurdles or challenges and be prepared for those when it comes to the partner, the investor that you really want to work with,
Right.
or a
Well, it's
customer.
overcoming
Yeah.
objections. It's all about overcoming the objections, right? If you can eliminate objections, there's no reason not to do the deal.
Absolutely. And this too, like, I like to hear about your opinion on this because this comes up often as well. For people that are fundraising and, again, being at that event, every single one of them is saying, "Oh, we're going to be a $1 billion company. We're going to make you a lot of money. We are going to be the best that's ever been. You know, give us money." But like Mike Panesis and some others in the room, Parisa, as well, they were trying to highlight as investors that they're looking for the person that they will feel the most, again, joy and fun working with, while also choosing the deal that is
Right.
the least risky in order to pursue those opportunities. As a founder, how do you demonstrate those qualities of your character and the deal to, again, showcase your personality and de-risk the deal?
So the most important thing is be open and accept criticism, accept commentary. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's great that Mike's a great guy. And yeah, I can see him saying, he wants to do business with people he wants to do business with, right? Everything always boils down to relationships. So if your industry is a strong industry, your widget, is at least unique or has a hook to it. Um, Again, do your research, understand your marketplace. Um, I don't know. Other than I don't really know what else I can add other than, personally, why are you the person to be able to succeed? What is it about you, either your personality, your background, your experience? Why you? Why are you the one to make this happen? If you can't answer that question, you'll never raise a dime.
Yeah, it's a very important question, and it's one that I see come up the most, especially with people who, I mean, it comes with everyone, but the ones who I feel fail the most at that question are the ones who are chasing a trend, chasing a fad, chasing money that they think is easy money, just because they see everyone
Those
else
are,
doing AI and stuff. Um, yeah, it's very interesting. With again, your experience doing this uh as an advisor, not just as a founder. A lot of people I've been seeing, in the community, in all the different communities that I'm a part of, they're trying to seek out advisors to come on, the board to bring more value to the company, but also to be a little bit more impressive to investors. Um, what are your recommendations for again, seeking advisors out, but also vetting them and making sure you're not just bringing someone on because they're a name, but they're actually going to be
sure.
contributing? And what does that arrangement look like? Because again, I've seen some founders that expect them to be, as an advisor, a employee, which is definitely not what the
Mhm.
role is. So yeah, what do you got?
Yeah, so an advisor in name only, you want them on your advisory board. So when you go to talk to an investor, you have some names. If they're not bringing any value, what do you need them for? Investor's not going to be impressed if uh, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is not going to help you work the business and make connections. Any advisor, to bring them on, has to bring you value. It may just be connections, right? If you're in the sports industry and you want sports figures, great, but just having their name is not going to do anything for you. But if they can pick up the phone, if they're will, and these are conversations you have to have up front. Uh, are you going to pick up the phone and make introductions for me? Who do you know that might be interested in this? Are you going to be active? If they're not going to be active, what do you need them for? As far as what the relationship looks like, again, if they're going to be involved, it depends. If they're going to bring you a deal that's worth X amount of dollars, give them a piece. If it's somebody that's going to work the business with you, give them some options. You have to motivate, whether it's an employee, an advisor, board of directors, it doesn't matter. People need to be motivated. It's like, why are they going to work with you or for you? There's got to be some self interest in there somewhere.
Absolutely. I'm bouncing around looking at chats and stuff. Um, yeah, people are agreeing and thanking for advice.
That's nice.
Yeah, good stuff. I want to see more questions. That's what I want to see. But in the meantime, Mark, you did have a couple interesting topics that you felt were going to be valuable to share with the community. I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, sure. I had a couple themes, but let me first tell you a little bit of stories before we leave the fundraising. So I had a sales guy who worked for me, and he was trying to get, this is back in the software days, he was trying to get the buyer of Electronics Boutique back in the day uh, on the phone to make a pitch to him. He called this guy once or twice a week for must have been 7 or 8 months and never got the guy on the phone. One day, the guy answered his phone, and my sales guy was so flustered he didn't know what to say. He wasn't prepared, and he stumbled and said, "Have a nice day," and hung up. So the point of this is when you're going out to wanting to talk to an investor, a customer, client, whatever, be prepared. Know what the hell you want to talk about. Have it written down because sometimes you get a little flustered when somebody answers the phone. You get a little intimidated. Have a cheat sheet. Don't waste the phone call. So practical advice. Um,
No, that's
all right.
incredible advice, and I think this also speaks to the antithesis of what a lot of people feel startup culture is, or running a startup is, and that is not document anything. Going as fast as possible means that you can't take the time to
Hmm.
do any documentation or have a methodology or a system in place. And I appreciate you bringing that up. The simplest little thing of just having a little, like note card, right? So you have something to fall back on is invaluable for
I got it
any
right here.
system. Yeah, I love it. Let's get into it then.
All right, cool. So one of the themes I want to talk about was do what you know, right? So when I started my first business, I was very young. I had driven and camped my way across the country, camping out in national parks. This was back in the early CD-ROM days, so I got gray hair. I'm an old guy. So I thought, this is a cool business. I want to get involved in this business. I didn't know anything about it. I sort of figured out, the logistics and blah, blah, blah. And then I had to come up with a topic, right? So what does everybody love? What's very horizontal? Where can I get the most outreach? So I thought, well, shit, I just camped my way across the country. I've camped in 60 or 70% of all the national parks in the country. So I decided I'll do a almost an encyclopedia type product on the national parks. So did some research. I found a book that was written by a couple of educators up in Canada called the Family Guide to the National Parks. I knew that there was video that existed because we all pay for it with our tax dollars. We're entitled to the video that the National Park Service shoots. Hired a developer and created my first product. It was something I knew, something I loved, something I was passionate about. And that first product led to a company that was very successful, ran for about 9 years. We became the 10th largest publisher in that space. So do what you know, right? It's like AI, right? I would love to come up with a great idea for the AI business, but that's not me. I don't know it well enough. I'm not a technology guy, at least not to that level. So that's something I would never pursue because I don't have the expertise. So that theme would be do what you know. Um, the second theme is about networking. So I'll tell you another story which just happened. So I was partners years ago with a television production company, and these guys produced a lot of programming for the History Channel, and they have an archive, a video library of over 10,000 hours of documentary type footage. So my buddy Rob and I have been talking for months. It's like, okay, so we've made books out of it. We've made audio books. We've made videos that we've sold in the past. I've got this podcast that I mentioned earlier. I use the interviews that they have for the podcast. But it's like, okay, this is, we're piecing together little bits and pieces of business. But the big play is the History Channel changed, right? They went from history and they're doing Ice Road Truckers and they're doing The Greatest Catch. It's like there's no history anymore. So it's like, Rob, we have the best archive in the world on documentaries, historical documentary. We need to be what was the History Channel. So I got pissed off about it. Just thinking we have to figure this out. So I started networking. I started calling people I knew. Who do you know in this business? So to make a very long story short, yesterday, Rob and I had a phone call with a guy who sits in the middle of, you have content providers. This guy sits in the middle. Then you have fast channels like Roku, LG, Samsung, Pluto. So we explained to him what we have. We don't need to raise a ton of money because we've been producing little short videos for a long time, and we can now put them together and create 40, 50-minute videos on a theme. And this guy's very encouraging. He wants us to get the deck together and send him the information. He will then take it out to the Plutos of the world, the LGs of the world. It's a simple revenue sharing deal. So if we can get this fast channel up and running, there's a lot of money to be made doing this. So my point of this is I kept my relationship with Rob, which is 3 decades old. I got the name of a guy in the content business, a very high up guy at YouTube that I had a friend who knew him. I sent him a very nice message. He said, "Oh, I see what you're doing. Let me think about it and let me make a connection or two." He connected me to this guy Brian yesterday. Had this fantastic call, and it looks like, fingers crossed, we may be able to get a fast channel launched. So networking and building relationships and maintaining those relationships is the most important thing you can ever do for your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking to a young founder yesterday at the event, and I was explaining this in a different way. But the idea is that they're seeking capital in order to achieve, the ability to do X, Y, and Z. And I was saying if you had the right relationship, you might not need that capital for that. You might be able to get certain aspects of this through that relationship, through an introduction, right? Through someone being willing to barter services for services, right? Let's say you need a website design, you don't have the money to pay for it, but you are really good at your craft and they might need your craft, right? Whether, maybe you're like a chef by trade,
Yeah,
right?
barter system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many different ways to leverage those relationships in ways that unlock opportunities and provide you with the resources you need that capital would otherwise be used for. But yeah, like the idea too of maintaining those relationships and the fact that, this was a 30-year long relationship that led to this is incredible. I have a couple questions and we'll get back to this because there's a couple
Sure.
tangents I want to go off on because of this wonderful story. But Julik asks, we are lacking intimate domain knowledge. How big of a problem is that for initial fundraising? Should I hire someone or an advisor would be fine? What's your advice for someone that needs more domain knowledge?
Uh, Make best friends with your AI chatbot. Don't go out unless you can answer any question that's posed to you about your industry, your domain, as you call it. You need to become the expert. Don't rely on anybody else, right? You hire an advisor who knows the domain. He gets another opportunity. He goes sideways. You're stuck. You have to be the domain expert. Do what you know.
I think that's like it goes back to like yeah, that point. You want to if you're an early stage entrepreneur, meaning you haven't spun up businesses before, you haven't found success with that, you don't understand the process to that. If you're pursuing something you lack domain knowledge in, you're skipping some steps. You're pursuing something you're not ready for. And that's okay to recognize. It's going to be better for you to put that on pause and find something that you know inside and out to bring to the market that you
Or
can
learn, or learn. There's
yeah,
there's no excuse. There's no excuse not to do the research.
yeah, that yeah, absolutely. I'll get into that. I agree. Because this is what I did. I learned working at a UX product firm because I didn't have domain knowledge for a lot of this stuff, but I had to pick that up and I had to learn. And what, yeah, Mark, you said is a great starting point because think about AI not as intelligence, but as aggregators to do the legwork to find you a bunch of resources for you to then pick apart and dive into and then figure out what resources those are connected to or what they're citing as their resources or their sources, their source material. This is kind of how I learned about startups like 20 years ago. Startup Genome Project had just launched. They put out these annual reports about the global ecosystems. And I was enthralled with the research they were doing. And I started looking at all the resources, or excuse me, the sources of their information for their essays and their reports. And then I started digging into all of those. And I was like, holy cow, there's like this whole world of information out there to learn from. Now that's like the first step. And when it comes to designing products and building a great service, a great product for the market, you want to take that research and then spend time with your intended customers, your users. Do whatever you can to map their daily systems, their daily workflow to achieve the same or similar benefits you want them to get from your product and service, but see how they're doing it in unique ways. You'll be surprised. A lot of people are cobbling together like 40 different things to achieve like one single thing that your product will provide to them, right? But you need to understand what their expectations are in the market, what their behaviors are, past and current, and all these other things. And that'll help you get to the point where, as Mark's saying, you are now the domain expert. And I will say too, like Mark, you can like add on to like you always benefit from having advisors who have more experience than you and more knowledge than you. But I think this is where it's important to be a domain expert yourself so you can vet them appropriately and know if they're like just completely full of it or if the value they're bringing to you is authentic and truly something that you are overlooking and incapable of understanding just because there's a discrepancy in the level of expertise and experience between the two of you. Is that fair?
No, that's a great point. It boils, it comes back around to why are you the guy? right? Why am I going to invest in you? If you're not a domain expert, there's a guy who is, who's trying to do the same thing. I'll go work with him. I'll give him my money. So, talk to some investors that you don't want to do business with, talk to some customers, tell them what you're doing, ask them for, why they would or why they wouldn't buy your widget. Go out and get information. You have to be the expert. You know, I wasn't the expert in back in the publishing business, right? But I made a million phone calls and I talked to 1,000 people. And until I was comfortable that I knew what I was talking about, I didn't ask anybody for a dime. And just to go back to strategic relationships and strategic money, the first time I raised money, I found a customer who was the perfect distributor for what I was selling, and I pre-sold him a year's worth of goods. And I raised over six figures putting that deal together. I gave him a little bit of equity on top of that. It made fundraising so easy.
There's some good questions coming in. Welcome, John. Welcome, Saji. I'll get to your questions in just a moment. We got just a couple ahead of you. I'm glad everyone's warming up and finding
That's
like
good.
again their
That's great.
courage to ask questions. Okay, so Julik added, I'm doing that already, participating at industry events and speaking to debate practitioners. Wonderful. But what about credibility in front of an investor without anyone on the team that has been deep in the trenches? And they just said that it sounds like we just addressed that concern of it's just spending more time getting deeper into like all the research you can find and figuring out again what those sources are, and then you can go to those sources directly and you can talk to them, you can interview them about your ideas and what the struggles or workflows and systems are that they're experiencing, their communities, because maybe it's a community of like say doctors, right, an association of doctors, and they represent a bunch of doctors. They know what doctors are doing day to day in the field of how they handle patient intake, how they deal with bedside manner type situations, all these little things. And that also will lead you to introductions to doctors if you're focused on serving doctors as your clientele. So yeah, definitely like dig in more to that. Truther asks, what is the best way for a startup founder to achieve an international corporate expert level team with experience, relatable markets, supplements, marketing, required skills, management and scaling? Pre-launch valuation is 2 million, multiple USPs, etc. There's more than enough to offer and value to stakeholders. I, Mark, I have an opinion on this, but I'd like to hear your opinion. From
Well,
what,
first I
from
want
what,
to make sure I understand the question. So is he or she talking about how to go internationally? Is that the question?
yeah, Truther, you're trying to expand from your current market that you exist in, because yeah, it doesn't sound like you're operational yet because you said pre-launch valuation, so you don't yet have anything in the market. So where you
So it's
live,
good because you're thinking globally. So that's a good thing already.
yeah, they said they want to go international.
Okay,
Yeah,
so all right. So here's what I would do. So if you want to go to Europe, you want to go to England, you want to go to South America, you want to go to Argentina, all these countries have economic development departments. It's their job to try to encourage international business. So the first thing to do is do some research, find out what departments exist internationally, figure out what discussion you want to have with them, get somebody on the phone or by email, and tell them what you're trying to achieve, and they will provide guidance how you can best do that in their country.
that's
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 that's how I would do it.
yeah, that's invaluable advice, and the same thing's true for like every nation. Like we're in America, there's been some like issues going on to reduce some of the budgeting of it, but at the federal level, but at the state level, at the county level, at the city level, every government has different layers to it, right? Going from, again, the local community upwards to the federal government. So don't only look at like, the federal government opportunities. see what opportunities are at every level of how that government is designed as a hierarchy, because you might be really pleased to discover that a certain city, like maybe Buenos Aires, has immense opportunities available to different businesses, founders, entrepreneurs from outside of the country versus Brazil as a whole, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely follow that thread and that advice to explore the different, again, the different levels of government as they're set up, and
And
you'll be, yeah,
every country wants to do more commerce. They want to encourage trade. They want to encourage cooperation between countries. Especially, look, we're the largest market in the world, right? So they want to do business with us. They want to get their people here. It's a two-way street. So don't just ask them. This is what I need. Be prepared to say, by the way, this is what I can do for you guys.
yes.
So two-way street.
Yes, absolutely. And that's important because the reason why they exist is yeah, economic development number one, but they also might have workforce development agendas as well. So workforce is about how can we train the labor force to be more competitive and also be more productive in aiding the economic vitality. Economic development is about how do we get more money generated through the businesses doing business. How do we get more businesses creating more jobs so there's more capital being more capital flowing throughout the local economy, or again up through the federal economy. So these are great insights, absolutely.
You know, I run a monthly meeting, the Startup Entrepreneurship Group, and I bring in interesting companies, early stage. Through networking, I find them somehow, and I open it up to questions after I walk them through their journey. And after the Q&A, I always save the last question. And my last question is always, okay, we've got 50 people here. They're smart people. How can we help you? Right? And you'd be surprised how many of these founders, CEOs are surprised by that question. Like, nobody's ever asked me that question before. It's like, really? Isn't that what makes the world go round? It's like, how can we help you? You're giving me your time. You're helping me out. How do I help you? How do I reciprocate? So it's not a one-way street, man.
Yeah, it's a big part of why I do what I do the way I do it. Like, from going to the events, when we do like the in-person stuff, there's three questions everyone is asked. What are you working on? What could you use help with? How can you help others? And
Right.
it's just the most beautiful, easy way for everyone to know how they can be good neighbors, how they can contribute to each other and not just take, right? It's wonderful. And again, I'm glad that you're drilling this into the minds of everyone watching, that it's so important to put yourself in a position to be a resource, because when you do that, you're going to endear yourself to others. People are going to see you doing good work in the community around them, and they're going to want to be around you. They're going to want to see you succeed. They're going to support you. So, yeah, at the end of the day, the most impactful thing you can ever do is just be a good person to others and live authentically, you know,
Yeah.
paint your nails
Don't
if you want to
expect
paint your
anything in
nails.
return, but there is a thing called karma, and you'd be surprised how well it works.
Absolutely. Over on Discord, I can't bring you up on stage, unfortunately. I need to figure out the technicalities of that, and hopefully I'll get that done. It's something I've been working on actively. And yeah, I'm hoping I can get it done in the next uh, week, because we got a bunch of mentors on the schedule coming up, and I would love to just plop you right on stage so you can talk directly to Mark and others. But in the meantime, we got a couple more questions coming in.
Sure.
Over on Twitch, Saji asked, just a fun question, um, and it's worded a little bit, the syntax is off, but essentially they're asking, given the era of AI today, if you could, what would you do differently in building a product today, launching a new business today?
What would I do differently? Well, that's an interesting question. What do I do differently? I'm not sure I would do much differently. I only know how to do things one way. I mean, it's research what you're trying to do, see what the competition is, figure out your pricing, figure out the clients and the customers that would be interested. If you're looking for money, find the investors that invest in that particular area. That's their thesis. Um, I think it may sound a little mechanical, but these are the things you have to do. I don't care if you were doing it, 50 years ago or you're doing it tomorrow. Gather information. It's all about understanding what you're trying to accomplish, right? If you have a purpose, figure out how to support that purpose. And if you're trying to launch a product, learn everything you can. Just keep asking questions.
The
And
fundamental.
the other thing I wanted to say, Gary, is you're talking about. I forget who asked the question about going to industry events. If you really want to dive into it and figure, like, none of us know what we don't know, right? So if you're trying to be a subject matter expert, get yourself on a panel. You want to figure out what you don't know, have the audience ask you questions.
That's a brilliant, brilliant strategy for sure. Yeah, get on panels, see if you can be, like a mentor at different events, which is, a similar kind of role where you're seeing what people are doing and you're helping them understand and work through the processes. And also, yeah, if you can also like be a judge, see if you can be a judge. The other thing too, like, in regards to utilizing AI or any technology is if you don't understand the existing workflows, the existing systems, how can you ever expect to use technology of any kind, AI, something else, to automate something for you? Because you won't be able to identify if it's doing things wrong or, leading you down a path of ruin. So this goes back to, again, what you first said, Mark. Take the time to do the research, become the expert in the domain so you can identify these things and use technology appropriately to automate the different, like, aspects of building out, software or providing people with, a solution to whatever the problem is that you're trying to address for them. Um, let's see here. Oh, just to follow up on Truther, in terms of like putting together an expert team with experience, you said that your pre-launch valuation is 2 million. And you got multiple unique selling points. But I will say this, and Mark, you can add to this or correct me. You got to remember that at this stage, before you're in the market with revenue and real validation and traction, you really don't have any value to share in that regard because your valuation of what you think the company's worth, it's not backed up by anything. It's only backed up by assumptions, and your assumptions are likely to be wrong. And the amount of effort and capital to get it to a point where it's truly worth $2 million, that might be years away. And the capital investment might take $5 million, right? So, Mark, do you have any other opinions on that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So if you're trying to value your company, go ahead and throw your dart, right? Because that's all you're doing, right? Because at the end of the day, the market will tell you what your valuation is.
This too is like where I think Safe as an investment vehicle has so much like favorability with YC and others, and it's spread to many other angel investors and syndicates outside of the VC world. It's because you're not deciding what the valuation is today. You're going to wait until the market tells you what it is. Now, what you do with that is you set a cap at $2 million, and that's when whatever amount of money people have invested into you is when it translates to the equity in their hands, right? From my understanding, not the most on like the finance side of things, but yeah, it's just another way to put that off and wait for the market to really determine what the value is. Now, I'm not saying that you aren't bringing other value to the team, but if you're looking for employees, the only value that they are really after is a paycheck because they have bills to pay. Everything else is a bonus to, again, differentiate why working with you is going to be more enjoyable, more beneficial than another employer, right? But if you're not able to pay their bills and keep them in a place where they feel secure and capable of living their lives the way they want to live their life, then they're going to be seeking another job as soon as they can, as soon as a better opportunity comes. And it doesn't matter what you're doing in terms of like the culture of like, treating them well, because that's not going to pay their bills. It doesn't matter how much equity options or whatever you're giving them, because that doesn't pay the bills, right? So just be aware of those different things, and lean into the awareness of where you are today, what stage you're at, what the constraints are that you're operating under. You might just be rushing ahead to try to hire people or bring people on board before you're capable of doing that. And there's a lot of legal risk involved in that too, especially in the USA. Like, and in certain countries in Europe, it's even stronger labor laws that are protective of employees. So don't be in a rush. It's okay to go slow and steady. And you're saying you have many partners waiting to launch, but having a letter of intent isn't binding contract. It's not a pre-sale order. So people that have experience and awareness, they're going to differentiate those two and not value a long list of potential, like customers on a wait list or even LOIs as anything more than an assumption that those will convert, and they might not. Yeah. Any other like opinions on that, Mark?
Sure. Yeah. So what you need to become very good at is learning how to enroll people into your vision, right? I'll explain it by example. So when I was launching an educational book imprint, we licensed from a Japanese company, largest Japanese educational publisher. So now I have to translate it. I have to edit it because you can't do from Japanese to English a one-to-one translation because they're complicated subjects and it has to be the context has to be correct. So I found a translator who he himself was a middle school teacher. He just happened to be fluent in Japanese, and he did translating on the side. And he understood that kids are only reading graphic novels and manga. And the fact that we're taking it and we're entering the market in a format kids are reading, he immediately saw the value and got enrolled in that. Same thing happened with the editor. My editor was also a middle school teacher who happened to be a wonderful editor with years and years of experience, and she also got it immediately. So the first thing you need to do is enroll yourself in your vision, right? So if you're like, oh, I think this is going to work, blah blah, and you're lukewarm about it, but you think you can make some money, never going to work, right? You have to be passionate. You have to be, like I say, I use the word enrolled. You have to be completely absorbed by your mission and your purpose. And if you are, people are going to see that and feel that. So if you're talking to an advisor or you're talking to a potential employee, they're gonna get their energy off of you. So you have to be your best cheerleader, and you can only do it authentically. You can't make this up.
No, that's again a really important distinction to call out to people is that like if you're faking it, you can only fake it so long before people really clue in. And once they do, they're going to feel like you're a fraud. They're going to feel like you're lying to them. And that's going to destroy your brand, not just the brand of your company, if you're doing it as a company wide thing, but also like, as a personal or as an individual, your personal brand will be destroyed as that. And so it's in your best interest to, again, take the time to define and understand your mission, your values, your culture authentically, and use that as a compass for every strategy you come up with, every decision you make, whether that's a partner or like, a marketing campaign, anything like that. Make sure that it's always in alignment with those things. Because if they are, you're going to build an incredibly strong brand that everyone can understand. And maybe they don't all resonate with it because it's not for everyone. But the people that do align with it, they will resonate, and they'll resonate in such a powerful way that you'll build a strong community around what you're doing. And that's like, in my opinion, one of the most defensible things you can do for your business is build a strong community around you. Because that's like why people are like, no, I don't ever want to touch a Pepsi. Pepsi's gross. I'm all about Coke. Or sports teams are probably an even better example of
Yeah.
this. Like, think about how bad the Raiders are. No offense to Raiders fans. My best friend's
Were.
a Raiders fan. Yeah, but it's like this guy every game. It's like every game before it starts, he's like, "Yeah, let's go Raiders!" And at the end, he's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm still a Raiders fan." And
Hey
like,
man, I'm a Jets fan, so I can relate.
there you go. Yeah. But that's the thing, right? Like it's the community aspect of it. It's what's making someone a diehard bought in fan of it, and it's the authenticity, and it's what you're doing with the community. And just lean into that. I think that's brilliant. Mark, we got a question over here on Start Motto from John Paulson. How you doing, John? So John asks, can you explain to me how a board sponsor works? Does every department like IT and marketing need one? Are they effectively an advocate for that department at board meetings? How can a board sponsor help such departments, like in terms of getting changes to their budget approved? Are they at the top of your chain of command, especially from a change management perspective?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by a board sponsor. I'm unfamiliar with that term. What I'm guessing it means is someone on the board who becomes your advocate. I don't know if that's correct or not.
I'm asking for clarity. Yeah, John, if you want to jump on stage, let me know. Or you can just use the text chat to add a little bit more, again, context to this. Or you can, yeah, simply say, yeah, Mark, you're correct on what your assessment was.
Yeah, well,
That's
if
funny.
it is somebody on the board that you want to have as an advocate, um, I would think that if what you're trying to accomplish makes good business sense, the whole board will be your advocate. I don't know that you're going to have a particular board member separate from the others. Um, the board's responsibility is to make sure that the company is governed correctly and has the right growth plans, and, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, so the whole board should be your advocate, in my opinion.
John's writing, so we'll hear it in just a moment.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
Uh,
learn something new today. That would be great.
yeah. Okay, yeah. John says, yeah, it seems to be a term used by the Project Management Institute, an association for project management. So, yeah, it seems like you're correct on that assessment. I'm curious. I want to look this up.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing the same thing.
All right, let's take a look real quick. And Mark, how are you on time? Because we're getting real. We just actually went over a minute.
Yeah, I'll have. If there's more questions, I'll hang.
All right, awesome. Appreciate it. You're the best.
As long as there's some value here.
Oh, I'm getting lots of value. Hopefully everyone else is too. Oh, we got a question while I'm looking into this, and then I'll drop a link. Okay, so Saji over on Twitch has another question. Might post it real quick. Oh, awesome. John just posted a link too. All right, but let's do the question real quick. So Saji asks, I'm really interested in AI automation for businesses. Have you implemented any AI-powered automation in your company, or are you
Hmm.
planning to in the future? And I'm follow up if you have. I'm curious, like, how did you approach that?
I personally have not. But like I said before, I do a lot of networking. I have several go-to people who know how to automate workflows and create agents. One of them in particular, she was such a great consultant and did so. Her work was so great, helping companies streamline, that one of her clients actually hired her full time recently. So I've sort of lost her as one of my go-to. This one of the CEOs I work with, he uses AI sort of as his sounding board. So he uses it on almost every high level decision he's making. He'll give it a scenario. He might upload emails or documents, ask it to read through, and ask it specific questions. So he's using it that way, and he doesn't take it for granted that the answer that he gets is the right answer, but it gives him more food for thought. But I was thinking the other day, what a really good AI agent that I would build or have built for me would be an inventory reordering agent that could, look at my historical averages of inventory levels. It would have my vendors, it would have my inventory, it would have my customers, look at POs. And I think that process could be easily automated through an AI agent. So that's just sort of one of the things that I was thinking about.
I like it. Yeah. And again, like it's super important to first understand the existing workflows, the existing systems before you
Which
apply
most
the
people
AI.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Document your processes.
I like it. All right, so going back to John. All right, so we now know what a project sponsor is. The sponsor has a critical role as part of the government's board. of any project, program, or portfolio. The sponsor is accountable for ensuring that the work is governed effectively and delivers the objectives that meet identified needs. John also added, not sure if your publishing experience includes print digital media, but it seems that a lot
Yes,
of open editorial submissions these days are AI generated. How do
yes.
such entities within print digital media typically source such submissions in your experience? And how do they work with, say, business leaders sending in these submissions in terms of assigning them an editor and guiding them through the process? That's a really interesting question.
So I can speak to it in the creative world. So in the creative world, fans, if they smell AI generated content, will run the other direction. Um, as far as creating it for a business purpose, I think that's something that's totally legitimate. Again, I think you have to prompt it correctly with what particular questions you want answers to, or how to format something properly in language. But don't copy and paste. Take it, ingest it, make it your own. So let your personality shine through in any of that correspondence. AI is great. It's a fantastic tool, but that's all it is. It's not going to, it shouldn't replace your brain.
Again, I appreciate that. This came up too during the pitch event, with both Parisa and Mike as investors, reviewing and giving feedback. Don't use AI to create your pitch decks. They hate it because of what you just said. It robs personality from the deck.
Yeah.
And again, investors, customers, partners of any kind, they want to understand who you are as a person, what your personality is, what your brand represents, right? Again, as a company or as an individual. And taking the time to ensure that that is being showcased is going to give you more leverage in connecting with the right people, but also attracting the right people or giving them any sort of interest at all. And more than that, especially these days, so much of this stuff looks the same, it feels the same, it reads the same. Like the outrage like of using, like hyphens alone is like
Right.
crazy. Even if you're using them like, you've used them appropriately, for years, it just immediately sets people off. So yeah, again, use AI as a tool appropriate within the context of what you're trying to do, but don't rely on it. Don't
Yeah, it works.
accept
It
it.
works great as a first draft, you know, sort of to take your thoughts and organize them properly. Um, but yeah, don't use it as a final product.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think coming up on questions. Last one. Let's do the last one. Just a simple one. Julik asked, "What do you think about early stage boards?" And this could, I'd like to hear your opinion on both like a board of advisors, but board of governors. And again, like when you think someone should be seeking those out, and yeah, your overall thoughts.
Yeah. So for a startup company, just use advisors. Um, there's no real legal contract between an advisor and a company unless you make one. But a board is something different, right? A board has to be involved in all sorts of compliance issues, and they are open to liability. So personally, I won't join a board unless that company has officers and directors insurance, because I will get named personally if there's a lawsuit brought. So being a board member, it's a much more sophisticated role. So until you're ready, until you can spend the $10,000 and get directors and officers insurance, you're simply not ready. Um, how you put together your board, that's a whole different discussion, which I'm not sure we have time for.
That's fair. Yeah, all right. We are over time, and I really, really appreciate you, Mark, and all the wonderful answers and insights that you shared and advice. Uh, I know we had two things that you wanted to talk about,
No,
but
we got through. I
yeah.
wanted to talk about, do what you know, and just the value of networking and maintaining
Oh,
relationships
beautiful,
over the
beautiful.
course of.
Sorry, my
That's
brain
okay.
trying to
It's
track it
okay.
all. But that's wonderful. But yeah, do you have any like final like final thoughts, announcements for anyone in the community to know about anything like that before we go?
Sure, I can give you one to to think about. Um, So I had a guy work for me once he was my controller and he was doing his MBA, and he had to interview a few people, early stage company founders, and what kind of advice they would give an early stage company. And what I said to him, I said, be like Nike, just do it. It's like don't suffer from analysis paralysis. Do something today. You'll learn more tomorrow. Just keep pushing that ball forward. You'll make mistakes, but action is better than no action. And I'll finish it with a quote I love from Michael Dell. Ideas are a commodity. Their execution is not.
The other thing to touch on, this comes up a lot, is like to build on this before we go. Done is better than good. We've had many mentors drill that into the heads of people, especially during our like, our like incubator weekends that we've done.
Yeah.
And yeah, like just get it done. It's good enough because then you're able to see how people engage with it, see how people, respond to it and interact. And, over the process of this, like you don't need to rush to an MVP, just, get a website, get a fake door test going so you can like put it in front of people and see if there's any interest, the right kind of interest. So I really love all the insights that you shared. And hopefully, yeah, I mean, John, I'm glad you're a part of this. William, Boyne, yeah, the three of you, always fun to see you and appreciate, yeah, the questions, John. And everyone else that have, contributed to the wonderful questions and discussions. Thank you so much. And we'll catch you next time. Thank you again, Mark, so much. Have a
Gary,
wonderful rest of the
anytime,
week.
man. All right. Thank you, everybody. Good to see everybody, or
Awesome.
good to hear everybody.
Yeah. Take